Okay, exciting. Oh, this is always the wee exciting bit, isn't it?
No, this is always the worst. I always get cringe because see the intros is always the hardest thing. So I usually just try and record intros once people are going.
Well, listen to this for a professional intro, right? Because I used to be like that, but I feel like I've gotten better at it recently. But now you've put me in the spot. Now I can feel it now. You can start feeling a wee bit of anxiety now. You're like, oh God, you actually said it, so now I need to do it properly. But no, welcome to another episode of the All About Value podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Kieron. You know what's funny is I was about to say you're sitting in the way that I was going to say it before you said it, but Achara, right? And I'm so glad I asked you that beforehand because I was definitely going to butcher it. But you've done a lot of amazing things. You know, we're talking about a former pro basketball player who has been, done everything you can imagine. And you're also, I will say this, I knew you were tall, but see, I haven't actually seen you in person. You're like, wow, it's you've got a very larger than life feel to you.
Well, thank you, appreciate that.
Like Andre the Giant would be intimidating.
And the big BFG, that's me.
But you do come across as a very gentle giant, Kieron, I will say that. And I think that, I've never actually got deep into basketball, which I know is your passion, so I'd like to kind of touch on that a wee bit, because I think that when you look at basketball as a sport in this country, in the UK, it's maybe not necessarily as big as it is in America and such, but you've obviously played at a very high level. You were the captain of the GB team at the 2012 London Olympics, which is amazing, and I want to get into that with you. And so you've obviously been one of the better players, and I believe you were a part of an NBA draft at one point as well. So I want to get into all that, but more so than that, a lot of what so that's kind of the start of your career and the nucleus of it. But having read more things about you, I'm pretty fascinated about what's happened afterwards and what you spoke about and how you've had to sort of deal with that process of what's going to happen after your career's finished. And a lot of the quotes I read from you, which I thought were interesting, was this idea that athletes have this self-worth where it's like they only know what it's like to play this one sport, and you have this fear of being like, what's going to happen afterwards, and how you came to the process of dealing with that. So I've basically ran through every part of your career there in the first few sentences without you saying a word. So that's what you call a rookie podcast mistake. That's a rookie podcast mistake. You should be telling me this stuff. But so let's kind of go into how you started off then. We'll go back to the start, as a lot of famous podcasters would say. But when it comes to basketball, where did this passion come from you? And was it a case of, because a lot of people might listen to this and just go, the guy realised he was going to be 6'10", so and he's going to try back to basketball. Was it a case of being like, I think I've got the physical genetics to try this, or did you just fall in love with it first?
So I guess again, thank you for having me on. But yeah, to go back, I was quite late starting basketball. I was at 14, 15 when I first started playing basketball. And as you mentioned, growing up in Scotland, there was not much of exposure to the sport. It was one of those situations that I played traditional. I played football, I tried rugby. Believe it or not, I was a lawn bowler. I loved my lawn bowls, like absolutely loved it. Played for the county, club champion, really loved my lawn bowls. So the basketball thing happened in school, at high school. One of the sixth year pupils asked me to come along, try it for the school team. Don't know why. I was like only 6'4" or something at the time, and I'd played at PE, so it was something we'd done as a part of our curriculum. But I got and started playing with the school team, and most of the team was made up of rugby players. And we went on and we won the Scottish Cup that first year, and that was a real buzz. And this is another thing I talk about in life. A lot of people are always going about passion, your purpose. I don't think people are born with a passion. It's they start doing something, they're really good at it, or they enjoy it, or they get something out of that, and it starts to grow. So when I started playing basketball, I felt good. I felt that I could be really good at this. I wasn't just the awkward, tall, black kid anymore. I was, oh wow, I want you on my team. I want you to play for me. I want to be, because I was good at it and people wanted to be around things that are good. That made me feel like a sense of belonging. So quickly, I started to identify with the sport because I could turn on the TV, or it wasn't TV at the time. I was going on and looking at old videos and everything else, and seeing people who looked like me, who were tall, who weren't just seen as the tall freak. It was actually something that they embraced because it gave them an advantage in a way in the sport. So my trajectory just happened so quickly. Like I just started playing and wanted to play more. Started playing for a local club team, had some success there, got into the Scottish pathways really quickly. And then the next thing I know, I'm getting offered scholarships in the States. And like literally this happened in a span of 2 years. So I went from the awkward tall black kid in Stirling who loved sport, I love sport, to completely embracing this new sport of basketball, feeling like a sense of belonging and actually having some purpose behind it because I had a chance to get out and get a scholarship and go and get an education in America.
Wow, it's quite an amazing story, and it was quite surreal listening to that because it was very similar to how I feel about Powership football. So just hearing you talk about it, like how you won the Scottish Cup in the first year, is exactly the same thing that happened to me, and the whole idea of feeling like, because it just goes to show, one of the things I talk about a lot in the podcast is how we all have different, me and you physically, we look different and we've got different physical attributes, but the actual experience that we all go through is very similar in terms of hardships in life and dealing and finding somewhere where you belong, finding somewhere that you feel good about yourself and you can let that confidence grow. And I think it just goes to show that, no matter how different you might appear, we actually go through a lot of the same things.
A lot of, you're spot on there, a lot of similarities there. And that's what I'm saying. It's that for anyone, I think, in the world, it's that sense of, you want a sense of purpose, sense of belonging. And again, I was just very fortunate that I always say the sport found me to allow me to experience this, because it wasn't as simple as, oh, wow, you're really tall, you should play basketball. I didn't know anything about the sport. There was no exposure at that level. There wasn't people like in football, talent ID and scouts and everything else going around all the time. It was very much fortunate to have a 6th year pupil who saw me and said, you know what, I think you'd be good at this sport. Mm-hmm.
So, you talked about being that kind of, being a bit awkward and shy in the past, and then all of a sudden you found yourself in this sport, but then you go on to become the captain of the GB team and the Scotland team. How did that feel, and how did that come about to go from somebody that wasn't sure what they were going to do to be seen as the leader of this game?
It's, I always say that we always talk about longevity. So when I'm talking about success in anything, I think success, the real success, is the ability to keep going. And as I grew from strength to strength, I never had ambitions to play professional. Even getting a scholarship was, wow, this was an amazing opportunity. To then go on to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, and just kept going like that. And it's the same thing with the captaincy. I think I've always kind of been quite a humble person in my delivery. I've always bought into the bigger picture. I'm very much understanding that an ego can really set you back and really hold back anything. So I think with those kind of traits, it allowed me to kind of advance into the captaincy. Just like to clarify things, I didn't captain 2012. I became captain of the GB after that. My captains, Drew Sullivan and Lou Aldeng, I give them all the respect in the world.
I'm glad you said that, because they're the for me. They bust my wheelchair saying that.
So so 2013 I stepped in as co-captain and went on to captain the team in GB, and got to captain Scotland team at the Commonwealth Games in 2018, which was a real honour. But again, I never lost sight of just how proud I was to play at these levels. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people in life, they get complacent. They get a sense of entitlement once they get to certain levels, and they forget about the journey to get there. And that's the kind of message I want to take to anybody going forward. It's like it's very easy to look at the people at the top and what they're doing now, but actually the journey to get to those points is unbelievable. And I said that if you can start to find a way to fixate on that journey, like take pride in the journey, the byproduct is all these other accolades that come along with it.
100%. I think we get so caught up in destinations,
Very much so.
and when you're caught up in that, you get to the destination, and then it's like, what what happens now? Whereas if you're embracing every part of it, that's what life's all about. It's otherwise you're kind of wishing your life away in a sense.
Yeah.
But no, I think what you said there is really well put, and it made me just want to ask, like, how would you define leadership? What is the main quality, for you?
So I actually went back and studied leadership at university, so I'm not going to give you an academic stance of it. But for me, when I look at leadership, I think about someone who has the ability to influence in a positive way to help people get clarity to go into a positive destination, right? So it's having the ability to kind of, and there's so many ways of doing that, right? So my style of leadership is very much I'm very much a facilitative, supportive leader. I want to adapt. They call it servant leadership, in the style of, right, this is where we need to get to, and I say we in the sense a lot of people focus on the I or the me, right? So this is the objective that we're trying to reach. How can I support you, get the best out of you to help us get there? And I think that style always worked because I always understood that in life there's a lot of individuals who have different goals and objectives, but if there's some clarity of what we're trying to achieve, how can I help support that and how we can help going forward? And that's how I look at society now, right? It's like if we only fixate on ourselves and this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I need to do, instead of focusing on, what does society need? How do we support the people within that society in order to achieve those things? And I think if we had that a little bit more clarity in that and went with that more servant style leadership, I think that the world would actually be a better place. So that's something I try and live by, about looking at the ultimate goals, the end game, or the objective they're trying to reach. And then how can I support in that journey, and just be that friend? And for everybody, it's different, right? There's not one way to kind of say, like, some people need an arm around them, conversations at late at night. Other people need to be told that, I need you to step up, step your game up and be shouted at in front of people. They're okay with it. Other people don't want to be called out in public. And so, yeah, it's kind of mastering that. And I think the easiest way to master that is to first be more self-aware about yourself. Understand your own insecurities, your own vulnerabilities, what kind of ticks you off. If you're not liking someone, why do you not like them? Is it something maybe it's a little bit more inward? And then secondly, kind of learn to kind of find that empathy and understand others, be curious about other people, about their lifestyles, what they're going through, in order to try and come to these kind of common grounds.
Well, Kieron, I love that. Like everything you said there, especially when you were talking about, recognizing your own insecurities first, because you can't properly help somebody if you're carrying things from your own past and you're carrying things about how you feel about yourself. So it just goes to show that, self-reflecting is probably looking at yourself and looking at where you're at, what you're doing is one of the hardest things to do in life. But having the ability to do that allows you to be better for other people as well and fulfill your potential. So
yeah, spot on again. And like I said, there's a lot of things in my life that I was vulnerable. I always talk about my last year playing basketball, and I would be scrolling down the internet looking for negative comments, and it's because I had my own insecurities about being an aging professional. As you get older, and I was starting to think about that, and I quickly realised that it wasn't the person calling me out in that situation. It was more me and my insecurities. So go back to the drawing board, you work on yourself. And then I think some of those comments that you see that always happen throughout my whole career, it didn't affect me as much because I was starting to work on myself. I was a little bit more secure with myself. And that's another message about vulnerabilities. I see it all the time. People say, this person said this about me, this person said that about me. Thankfully, I'm strong. I'm a strong person, so it doesn't affect me. But actually, you never know when you're going to be vulnerable. That can always happen. So, you talk about being kind and saying kind things. That's the kind of message. But at the same time, inward, working on yourself, ensuring you're checking up on yourself to see if you are still feeling a little bit vulnerable, why you feel vulnerable, and is it something I can work through myself, or is it something I need support with?
Do it's really interesting how you're saying about that. Like that, I feel like that's a really common thing for pros. look, but not even just professional sports, but anything really in life. Look at the comments. Any negative comment, can always affect you in some sort of way, and being able to look at yourself like that. But when you say that you kind of, it was affecting you, and then you started to work on yourself, what was the kind of starting process for you to go, like, what was the first thing that you started to address when you're going through that process?
So I think the first thing I started to address was, why am I feeling this way? And the reality was, I knew the end was near for my basketball career. I was, up there in age, 36, 37. That was quite a long career. Most people retire in their early to mid 30s. And mentally, my head wasn't in the sport the same way. I was actually starting to think about other things, thinking about life after sport as well. I was expecting my second child at the time, job security, all the rest of it. So I took ownership of the things I could control. So going back, I'd mentioned I did leadership. I went back and did my master's in leadership and management in Northumbria University. I'd been out of education for 10, 12 years. Thought it would be a nice way to kind of, again, work on myself, because a big part of leadership is working on self-awareness. So the two of those kind of went hand in hand. But I was also thinking about that next phase of my life. I took some ownership on getting back into the gym, working on my body a little bit more, making sure I was strong, because there was things I was neglecting while dropping my head, neglecting things in my play, actually going back to work and putting in the work again to build my confidence up to be able to play the games I wanted to be played. So off the court, back at university, networking, speaking to people, asking questions, trying to get a little bit more insight onto potential career paths after I was done playing, as well as improving my performance still at that level, not getting complacent, and making sure that I was giving my absolute best in order to perform at my best and on the court. So I think by doing those two things, I still had a lot of bad games, but I was more secure with myself because I know I was putting in the work. And I think that when you put in the work and you can put your hand up and say, look, I've given all I can give, then the outcome, you've controlled what you could control. Actually, those in mistakes, everything else, you can kind of live with them a little bit better.
No, exactly. I mean, I love that. Like, I want to just like this podcast so far has just become a whole giant clip. I feel like you clip all these things into one. No, it's so good, because it's just, when you talk about focusing on what you can control, I think that because I was just talking about this the other day actually with the man in the booth there, but we were just talking about how when we struggle with things, when things become difficult and overwhelming, and you start worrying about these things, there's a tendency, a human nature, to kind of be like, this is too hard to deal with. It's too complicated. It's, and people want solutions, but they don't just want solutions, they want easy solutions. So they want you to go, if you do this thing, it'll be fine, right? But I think that when you actually, when your head gets noisy like that and everything gets negative, I think just breaking it down and going, no, look, why am I feeling this way, and what can I do to improve the situation? Because once you identify why you're feeling this way, like you've done, then you go, what can I control? What can I affect? And once you do that, it's not going to be easy, but it is doable. And I think that we have this tendency, instead of going, it's not going to be easy, but it's doable, we just go, that's too hard, and we just bury it.
Yeah.
And it gets worse that way. But I think that part of this conversation, when people are listening to it, if they're going through that, it's a case of realising that it's not as complicated as you think it is in your head. Like, lay it all out and go, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Identify that, and then put some action points in place as to what I can actually do to take it back under my control. And so just the way that you said that, I'm like, that's exactly what it is. And, even just talking about sport, the idea that you're saying that the losses don't feel as bad when you've done everything you can. And this is something that I've only recently discovered this over the last sort of few months, if you like. The case of normally whenever I've lost a game, I'm like, you can't talk to me. You won't see me for weeks. I'm sitting in my house and I'm just like, why did we lose that? What happened here and what happened there? But when you acknowledge the fact, when you know that you've prepared in every possible way that you can, then it's like, you go in with this sense of like, there's no regret there.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't win the game, but there's nothing more I could have done to win the game. So then that gives you, I think, not just in sport, but in your overall life, gives you a sense of peace and contentment. So I think that, I mean, I'm just kind of reiterating what you said there, really, but I think it was just it was a really powerful message, and I think it resonates with a lot of people. And talking about how you went and got, you spoke to people and you went and got further education, even just the idea of going in after not being in education for 10 years, that's something that people might look at and go, well, I can't do it. Like you're in education when you're younger, and then it's done.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people that dismiss that as an idea. Was that something that was kind of going through your head of like, I don't know if is this weird for me to go and do this? Like,
so I remember my first paper I did. I passed literally just passed on the cusp, and it was because I'd never done really academic writing before. So then for my second paper, because I hadn't done academic writing, I started studying not just the work I was doing, but actually how to do academic writing. And then my next paper was a really high grade, and what I ended up, graduating with distinction. So I saw the improvement, all right, but I did feel very uncomfortable. Again, an older student in the field, but I was so curious and I was learning a lot. So I looked at it very different. From the first time I was in education, I was very much need to get my degree. Well, actually, the second time around, I took pride in learning what, and applying my learning to my life. And I think that's how education should be, right? It should actually be about the process of learning, gaining knowledge, and then being able to apply that knowledge. Well, usually we see it as a tick box to an outcome of getting a good job or getting this or getting that, when actually it's a part of learning in your life, right? So I looked at education very, very different, and I took enjoyment through that process for that reason. But I also said that there's something that people tend to miss. So when I talk about this controlling the controllables and being able to push on, what people miss a lot of times is actually having the ability to have the self-belief that you can be better, right, is a privilege. Not everyone has that. There's a lot of people who have been trying to go on a journey and they've been kicked down so many times that they've got all this apathy that they can't achieve anything. That's what they genuinely believe. They're stuck, right? So I also understood that I've had success in sport, and I think about the ways I've had that success. So, working really hard on certain things, going into the gym, getting extra shots up. But I've also asked for support. I've had some of the best coaches in the world that I've been able to ask for help from, and they've given me that help, right? So having the ability to ask for help, for me now, I'll happily write to someone and say, look, I'm thinking about this. Could you help me? Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. But I have the confidence to do that because of my past experiences. Not everyone's had that same support, So that controlling the controllables thing is it's building that, working on yourself to really build that confidence to think about what support do you need. You reached out to me to do a podcast. A lot of people wouldn't have the confidence to even reach out. That's something that you've acquired, but other people are maybe not quite at that stage just yet, right? And again, some people might say yes, some people might say no, but you have the belief that the next person you ask is going to say yes. So I'll keep going on that journey. So I like to kind of strip that right back to think about, right, the confidence piece. Are you the person in class who was scared to ask questions because you thought you were going to look stupid for asking a question because you think everyone else should know that, and you just sit there and you don't learn that, right? Are you the person who, if someone says something you don't understand, you're going to ask, right, actually, I didn't understand that. Can you try and help me again? Because a lot of people don't have the confidence to do that. So if you're that person right now who is not willing to ask questions, not willing to ask for support, why? And that's something you have to go away and work on, because I said if you get that foundation bit done, then you can start getting on that journey, and now you start to see things moving a little bit quicker. Next thing I always say is people expect quick results, right? So start a podcast. Why have I not got 10,000 subscribers already, or what? And it's like, well, how long have you been doing it for? How many guests have you had on? And you maybe never get to that point, but why are you doing the podcast? If that's your end game, that's all you're caring about, you're probably not going to make it, because you're missing the point. Your why is not strong enough. So I'm always tending to look at those things, and I said I hate talking about resilience without first talking about working on your self-belief, right? If you can work on that self-belief, self-efficacy, that you can actually go on and achieve things, and what those achievements is very different. If it's very much monetized, this is how much money I want to make, not a lot of people are going to support you on that journey. If you think about something bigger than yourself, I think more people are willing and will support you on that journey, and actually it has more of an authentic driver to keep you going and keep you going strong and keep building on those certain things too. So that's another thing you can clip.
Oh, you want to just host this from now on? Like we can.
No.
No, but honestly, it's amazing because it's so true. Everything you say really speaks to me, and I think that because like you say, getting self-belief is actually a journey. I've been there so many times in my life that I've been totally down on the floor and thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get back up from this. And it's always been through recognising that there's still a little bit of self-belief there. Right at the back there somewhere, there's still a little bit of you that goes, I can still come back for this, you know what I mean? And like you say, so many people have been put down so many times that they just don't have any of that. It's all just apathy. And there's too many people that want to dismiss that rather than understand it and help people. And I think that is, when you talked about, you used podcasts as a specific reference, that is exactly what the whole point of this was, right from the first time I recorded. Like you referenced the idea of people, be in school not wanting to ask those kind of questions and stuff like that. That was me.
Right.
I was that guy. Even just the idea of speaking on a microphone at the start of this was like a terrifying thought, because I thought, what if people don't like what I'm going to say, or what if it doesn't, what if I say the wrong thing or whatever? And I was just terrified about it. But there was the reason why I was able to start it is because I go, the purpose of this isn't about how I feel. It's about helping other people feel that they are capable of doing it. And because when you're somebody in a wheelchair and you don't see anyone doing that stuff, you go, well, I want to help people in my position believe that they can do something that I thought I couldn't do, So you're so right in saying that kind of resilience only comes when you have that beginning self-belief
and that purpose behind it, right? So
yeah.
you've got that ability to keep going, because it's bigger than you. And that's I think when people start to work those things out, and I see it happens with a lot of athletes. I always talk about in sport. You talk about the initial goals for a lot of people. Why do you want to be a football player? I can make loads of money, have nice cars, right? But actually, what does that mean in the grander scheme of things? What does that mean in life? Who's going to support that? If you're only thinking about you, your car, your house, your money, what does it all mean if you have that money, but you have, you can only buy enough cars, that. It's all about that giving back. And giving back doesn't necessarily mean giving back loads of money and giving back that. It's giving back your time, giving back your education, giving back your support. All these things are so crucial. And actually, the crazy thing is they make you feel better too. They make you feel like you have more purpose. There's a lot of wealthy people out there in this world who are very miserable. All right. But I tell you, you get great pleasure just being able to help others and give back. There's no bigger honor in my opinion.
100%. And that thing you said about like when it comes to education, like learning things and then actually applying them. Whereas a lot of it, when you were saying that, something that really stuck to me was the idea that a lot of people go education and kind of get like, but the idea of it is like that grind to get that degree, and they want to just push through it and they get it, and they've achieved that. But it's like, have they actually retained that information in a way that's going to be useful in their life? And that seems to be something that is missing, because there's a lot of people I know that have a degree, but ask them something about that, they'll Google it, and that's obviously you're going to do that with certain things. But the idea is that are you enjoying the process of actually learning this thing? And I think that kind of goes to show, like, if you go in with a different approach, because that does tend to be, especially the people that I know that went on to uni and things like that, it was just a case of grinding your way through it, getting it done, and then afterwards it was like, okay, I've got that degree now. But how much of it did you actually enjoy, and what have you used with it for your overall life? So the sponsor for this episode is Lab Solutions, who are a property maintenance company that's actually run by my brother. And listen, I might be better looking than him, but he's a great guy. And you should go and check out everything he does, because he's one of the hardest working people I know. And I'm always making sure that anyone that sponsors this podcast has the same intentions as me and is coming from a good place. And he definitely is one of the hardest workers I know. He will take care of everything you need, just in all those type of areas. And I just want you to make sure that go and check him out. Make sure that anything you contact Michael about, he'll be sure to help you out and give you the best service that you need.
Because it's destination again, right? It's again, I need this. If I get this, I think I can get this. And the way I describe that is I can go back to the Olympics, right? So the Olympics was where I was very destination focused. It was like, get to the Olympics, got to the Olympics finished, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, my life hasn't changed. Like I expected everything to change, right? And it hasn't. And I forgot about the actual journey to get there, you know, and I reflect back on that now, and I'm thinking about this training camp, missing my friends' weddings, never been in a stag do, you know, not going out at nights with my friends because I was away doing different camps. But I was so fixated on this Olympics that actually once it finished and it was over with, it was a real down point, because it was just like I felt lost. My purpose had... So that's where I really had to start to kind of think about, okay, what do I really want to do? How do I really want to do it? You know, start enjoying that journey, seeing things happening, and actually the byproduct of those certain things become, you know, the Olympic Games, the Commonwealth Games, everything else. But if those never happened, would my life still be quote unquote a success? In my eyes, yes, it would. I think I've now developed this way of, like, I look at now, you know, we talked about life after sport. I'm now exploring different things. I'm saying yes to more opportunities. I'm doing things that I never thought possible. You know, I'm on Sky Sports doing on Fridays and covering games, and I'm giving talks and doing consultancy work, and I'm working in mental health and athlete mentoring. That was never a part of the plan. You know what I mean? But I've embraced it, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning more, and I know I'm not a quote unquote expert in certain things. I don't even like that term expert, because that means that you know all you need to know. I think that it's constant, you know, it's a continuum. So I'm constantly wanting to learn, evolve, stay curious, and I'm enjoying that journey. And it's scary, don't get me wrong, because it's sometimes you're like, you know, how am I going to pay the bills next week, or what am I doing, or who am I, and have that imposter syndrome kicks in. But I'm embracing it. I'm willing to take those challenges, and I'm hoping I find something like I did in basketball that was like, okay, this is something I'm going to put all my focus into right now. But right now, I'm just kind of enjoying exploring different things.
Well, I think the key to that is your life is worth more than any sort of destination.
Yeah, very much so.
And, you know, you're talking about how you got to the Olympics and it was like, you felt a bit lost. It was a down point. But then you also then go on to go to the Commonwealth Games, which you said you captained that there. So it made me curious, like, did it feel different at the Commonwealth Games compared to, like, because obviously you've learned that, you've had that down point at the Olympics, you realise, and like, I didn't embrace the journey. And so then by the time you get to the Commonwealth Games and that destination, did that have a different feel to it?
Very much so. And I when I say I embraced my Commonwealth, I completely embraced it. I, you know, looking around me, just enjoyed it. The pressure wasn't the same. I just enjoyed, you know, being around my teammates, and don't get me wrong, I had a lot of good experiences at the Olympic Games. I just never thought about them till afterwards, way afterwards, you know, after those down points, and I tried to pick myself back up. But with the Commonwealth Games, I completely embraced every part of that. And again, I was very aware this time that I wasn't allowing that to consume me, to think this is going to define me. It was just a part of the journey, you know. And you maybe see sometimes on my socials and stuff, I'll put that hashtag more than an athlete, that's something that, you know, I'm putting out to others, but it's also a reminder to myself that, and I always believe that you have to be more than your job title. If you're defined by your job title, or you're just defined by, you know, loving husband, or, you know, a title per se, that can end really badly for you, because if, you know, something was to happen, that's a complete disconnect within that situation. So I'm now trying to look at myself more holistically. So I'm Kieron, right? That's who I am. But Kieron's also played, you know, former basketball player, Olympian, Commonwealth Games athlete. These are all parts who make up Kieron, but it's not what defines Kieron. And I think that really helps when you have that in you. It allows you to get outside your comfort zone a lot of times and explore new ways, but also it never holds you back, because you've got the ability to keep going and keep building on certain things.
100%. I mean, it's really, it feels really powerful listening to you speak about that, because I think that obviously a lot of people may listen to you and watch you and go, this guy's been really successful, and there's no way that he feels like the same way that, like, this is what's interesting about life is that when you get a certain amount of success, there's certain people that will get that success where others will look at them and go, there's no way that they can feel the way that I feel, because they've got everything that I want. And you go, no, that's, and I used to think like that as well, but then you start realising that, like, everybody's human, everybody's got insecurities, everybody's got a journey they go through, and when you realise that, you know, we're all in this sort of learning process of figuring out who we are and what we want and what life's all about. But just hearing you describe the difference between the Commonwealth and the Olympics, and being able to sort of enjoy that moment a little bit more, you know, in terms of your preparation, do you think that, because I'm always curious about this sort of side of things, because I think that I used to be somebody that was very nervous when it came to wanting to put on, because you want it so badly.
Yeah.
You want so badly to perform at your best that you're thinking that you're so nervous about performing at your best, and that actually in turn most of the time stops you from doing that. So it got me curious in terms of, like, it took me a long time to realise that is, like you say, it's part of the journey. When you look at it as part of the journey and you put in the work, it does calm you. It does make you feel more reassured in the moment. But in terms of those kind of stages, are kind of really, I mean, really big stages, really, you know, a lot of eyes on them. Mentally, psychologically, was there any sort of specific process that you've done to make sure that, like, I want to make sure that because I talked to Martin Perry a couple of weeks ago. He is a professional table tennis player, and he spoke about being at the Table Tennis World Championships and how he, like I just said there, he was very much a guy who had a deep desire to win, and was very focused on, when he gets on the court, he's like thinking about the other player, thinking, I'm going to beat you and all that. And then when you do that kind of thing, you're not focused on what you actually need to do to perform well. So he was talking about going, he realised that about himself, and he got a wild card to go to the World Championships. And in his preparation for the World Championships, he decided that he got a sports psychologist and decided that my main focus on this is I'm going to the World Championships and I want to just enjoy the experience. So he came at that kind of process. I was wondering what the process was like for you.
Yeah, so I guess going back to that, control the controllables. So I had always had routines, right? Because routines, you know, from waking up in the morning, what I'm eating, time I wake up, you know, doing a little bit of reading to help calm me. That was all part of my routine. That's something I could control. I couldn't control what the bed was like, or what the pillows were like when you're, you know, on away games, or what the atmosphere is going to be like, what the opponents are going to be like, how they're going to guard me. You know, I couldn't control any of that. So I went to the things I could control, which kind of puts me at kind of ease. But then there's a lot of self-talk. You know, I tend to tell myself, you know, it's like positive affirmations. You know, be confident, be brave, you know, be a good teammate. These are things I'm telling myself, because again, I think if I can work on those things, focus on those things, the outcome more likely is going to end the right way, right? So kind of putting all these things in place, that was the thing. I with the Olympic Games, I was so fixated on, we need to do this, we need to qualify. Instead, I've just kind of went back to my routines and trusted the process. And I think it was a big difference. It was a big change maker. but also I was older at the Commonwealth Games with a lot of younger players who had never experienced the games before. You know, I actually roomed with a young kid called Kieron Achara who was 16 at the time, just turned 17. So it was his first experience. So I got to take a mentoring role within that situation about, you know, calming him down and helping him enjoy it and go and see the village, and, you know, you can get out your room, and I think that helped me as well. You know, it gave me a little bit more purpose because I'm trying to inspire that next generation. That was the tagline at 2012. I was now trying to, you know, physically do that, literally go in and inspire that next generation. So I took great pride in that, and I think that, like, seeing the younger players experience the games and having a, you know, we had a great run. We lost out in a medal in the end, but we were picked last in the group. We, to the point that because we were off site when we actually came back to the the Commonwealth Games village, we didn't even have rooms because they didn't think we would make it that far. So not even our own team didn't think we were going to achieve certain things. So we went on, played in the bronze medal match. We lost to Australia, who, you know, world ranked, you know, top 10. We beat Nigeria, who are, you know, world ranked in the top 20. Like we beat England, which was a phenomenal feat. But again, I think it was because we had that belief, that enjoyment, embrace the moment, and our purpose was to make Scotland proud, right? So we just went with that kind of focus, but enjoyed it. And I had, you know, there was tears, I was crying, we lost and everything else, but quickly picked ourselves back up, and, you know, we're proud of the achievement. So I think a balance of that, have control of my own destiny by controlling the controllables, the things I could control, focused on those things and never focused big time on the outcomes. And that kind of mentoring role, I think that really helped with the games.
I think it's fair to say you definitely did Scotland proud, especially when you're beating England. Yeah, so, but no, it's really amazing how your perspective on things is so good to hear, and I think that there's a lot that people can take from that. You know, like, because you obviously, so if you're helping people and you've experienced these big stages, and then you've had this really, like, long career. What was it like when you're finally kind of coming to the place where you know you're going to be having your last game and your last couple of games, and in your head, like, before playing them, had you already come to peace with that?
So I announced my retirement. So a basketball season finishes the end of April, May time. I announced my retirement, like, I think it was like December, January time. So I'd come to peace with it, and I think getting out in the open was a big thing. So talking with my coach, telling my teammates, then, you know, the press releases came out early, and it was really kind of surreal because I was then going to arenas playing away games, and I was getting standing ovations and people giving me signed jerseys and all this positivity. Like, it kind of really helped me appreciate the journey a little bit more and how I was seen to the basketball community. So it was really kind of weird because you're going to play a game, you're still playing, but people are, you know, doing a big announcements and standing ovations and exchanging gifts, and so it was really kind of, I was a little bit overwhelmed, but completely came at peace. But, you know, the ironic thing was, see, those last few months, it was the best I'd played in years. Like, and I think it was because of that. There was a whole bit of weight taken off my shoulders. I was completely at peace. I knew that I was moving on, and I think with any athlete, there's not like a retirement age that you say, like, okay, this is retirement. Boom, you're done. You know it's coming. It's very much a mental thing or a physical thing. So your body might say, no, you can't go anymore. But mentally, I was more like, I can't go anymore because I was conflicted. So I think coming to peace with that, having been able to go and experience those, finishing the season off straight, to the point that my coach at the time was saying, no, you should come back for another year. I completely made my mind up that I was going to do that. But a lot of my research at university, I did it on the athlete transition out of sport. And an interesting thing about that was people who tend to make a voluntary decision on things tend to move on quicker than people. It was involuntary. So say if you've been, a lot of basketball players or a lot of athletes they have to stop because of injury or because they've been cut. They've essentially been told they're not good enough. We don't want you anymore. It can be a little bit more difficult to kind of make that next stage because you're so caught up on the what ifs. What if I did this or what if I did that? It's very hard to kind of move on. So I think me coming to peace with it, my own decision, my own terms, allowed me to kind of move a little bit smoother through that kind of process.
And also, everyone talks about wanting to finish on a high, and to know that you came out, and played some of your best stuff, that must have been quite satisfying.
Yes and no, because I guess the fairy tale ending would go on, and we got to the cup final that year, and we lost. Right, so the storyline would be, oh yeah, won the cup, and and again, sports is an emotional thing. You're sad, you wished, you'd went on to win and did this, but I still was very much at peace. Like, so I'm thinking about legacy, thinking about the next stages, getting the infrastructure put in place that the team you want to continue that you were at continues to build and build. What's the point in having great success and then it completely just collapses? I said at the same time, like if you'd become, a top podcaster and you're making millions, right? And everyone wants you and the podcast is listened to by so many people, and then all of a sudden the next day you're dropped, you not doing podcasts anymore and you don't go and do anything else with your life. Was it even worth it? So it's finding that balance between having that ability to say, right, okay, I'm at peace with what I am, but what's next? Yeah. Where am I going to go next? Because that's what's going to define you. I'm hoping in 10 years' time that people don't remember me for my basketball, they remember me for something else. That's how my mindset is right now. I don't want to be known as just the former basketball player for my whole life, because then what have I done with the rest of my life? So I want to keep building. I want to keep making sure that I'm putting the foundations in and keep building. So actually, 10 years' time, they might say, well, that top, that pundit or that, CEO or whatever it may be, I'm known for something else.
100%. I think that you spoke of that before, about the idea that a lot of athletes get trapped in that, defending yourself that way, but not just athletes, but anyone in life. And you've obviously went on to do a lot of things afterwards, and I kind of want to touch on a couple of these things. Obviously, you got an MBE, which is pretty cool, a pretty big deal. And I seen you say when you got that, the quote from you was that, with self-belief you can achieve it, which is what we spoke about here. And then you've also talked about how you went on to, you're talking about mental health, and that is a big topic for you, and the way that you speak about it. And see, when you go to these events and you talk about these things, and you're doing punditry as well, like, so there's a few questions here, I guess, right? I'm asking a few questions at once, right? But what I'm trying to say is that my first question could be, when you're doing like punditry and you're helping the sport grow, what has the kind of growth been like for you from when you started it to now? And then how's it been kind of being around the sport as a pundit and sort of not being on the court, but just, enjoying that sort of process of, like you say, being on Sky Sports and doing those kind of things? And then the next part to that was going to be, because you're very, I don't normally do this, but you're very good at answering these things, so I thought I might as well ask them all at once. When you're talking about, when you're doing these kind of speeches, you're talking to people about mental health and things like that, what is the kind of response been in those type of things?
So punditry, to start off with, I love it because it keeps me connected to the game. But super nervous. I still get nervous before every time I go on. Butterflies in my stomach. People always talk about reframing butterflies to say you're excited instead of you're nervous. That's the kind of positivity and kind of way of looking. But I still get really nervous. I'm live on TV, can make loads of mistakes, but again, I'm embracing that. I'm enjoying it. I'm improving. We are actually the company that do the work with Buzz 16. It was previously owned by Gary Neville. He was a part owner of that. And I got to see Gary Neville's punditry when he first started to what he does now. And you can see the journey. So again, it's reminding myself, like, super nervous, always moving, quite shaky, to now I think I'm a little bit more polished. There's still room for improvement, but I'm a lot more confident in my delivery. So again, it's the process, it's embracing that process and enjoying that journey, learning from your mistakes and building on that. So I'm really enjoying that. With the mental health stuff, again, something I'm very, very passionate about. Just because I know how easy it could have been even for myself to go down that road, and I want people to understand that it genuinely is the right thing to do when speaking up, but it's actually how to speak up, who to speak up to, feeling accepted, building that confidence and that belief. That I'm driven by passion in that one. It's so I don't really care about my delivery per se or how it's it's more about this is the avenue. I've got a small platform, but I'm going to use it to its best of its abilities, and I think it's been well received. I think that especially a lot of males are coming up and saying like, actually, I didn't think it was cool to speak up, or I didn't think it was appropriate to speak up, and now they're kind of pushing those boundaries. That the awareness is now there. Now the next issue is once they speak up, what are we going to do about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now everyone's speaking up, but actually they're getting the support they need. So it's kind of working on those self-improvement tools, things that you can control again, for the most part. So hopefully these things never become a major issue because people are more confident at the start to self-reflect, be self-aware, so it never gets to that stage. And that's the work I've been doing with Frog Systems that I really, really enjoy, working in that kind of lived experience kind of storytelling. I'm saying it here now, I'm going to get you on my pod to kind of talk about your own experiences and everything else and going through that. But I just think I'm enjoying it. It's hard work. It's finding that time, balancing my family time with my young kids and my wife and getting work. Well, before as a basketball player, we were very much scheduled. I knew exactly what my schedule looked like. Now it's kind of trying to find how could I be the best dad I can be, as well as excel in business or work. So I'm enjoying it. That's the only way I can describe it. I'm enjoying it. I will openly admit that I am still very nervous, but I'm embracing that nervousness, quote unquote, excitement, and just saying yes to more things.
Was something that really resonated with me there when you were talking was the idea that anyone can go down that path. Like, regardless of what your life is like, you're always one or two bad things happening for you, maybe going down a really negative outlook and feeling bad about yourself. And I think the more that you learn the fact that that's always possible,
yeah,
no matter where you're at. Because there was something you said earlier about, what was it? There's been so many good things, but my point is that you end up, so you had this idea that people struggle, but that won't be me because I'm tough, I'm good, But no matter how tough of a result you are, you never know when you're going to be vulnerable, and that's so true. Like, there's been so many times in my life where I've been like, I've got this figured out now. Even like last year, like end of August last year, I remember being on a beach and thinking, everything in my life is good. I have figured this out. We are sorted for the foreseeable future. And then a matter of months later, I'm sitting there going, what happened the last 2 or 3 months? It's all like, I sat and said that to myself, and then literally within a couple of weeks, all the things I feel good about all went to buggery.
Mm-hmm.
And I was left thinking all my self-worth was on these things that wasn't to do with me and what I was doing. And so none of it was in my control.
Yeah, right.
It was all based on how other people felt about me. And then those people left, and those things that, not just people, but the things I cared about kind of all crumbled into one. And I'm going, okay, where do we go from here? Which is why it's so important, like you say, to focus on what you can control and have that self-assurance that you're living the life that you want and you're not defined by any of these other things.
Yep. And I look at that thing that there's so many things you can't control. Obviously, there's bereavement that's going to happen in your life at some point. People will be grieving the loss of a job, or there's a lot of different factors. People go for divorce and relationship issues and all these things that sometimes are a little bit out of your control. But I think that the kind of common denominator on all those things is if you have that thing you kind of talked about at the very start, about that little bit in the back of your mind about that self-belief that things can get better, you know, and it's helping people see that things can get better. But what does better look like? Because what I'm saying is there's a lot of people who go through a lot of suffering in their life, but they have meaning behind that suffering. And with that meaning, you can kind of go on. So I look at situations that people are working ridiculous hours to provide food for their kids, right? In my mind, that's success. You know, I'm comparing that to, you know, I think that's more success, being able to feed your kids. You know, from a really tough situation to be able to feed your kids, that's success. There's meaning behind that, you know, that you hope that the next generation will go on and be able to do something, you know, better and bigger or whatever it may be, or be able to give back to more people. But that's success. And that's just sometimes I have to look at myself and be like, if I'm only getting compared as being successful for being 6'10" and putting a ball through a basket, really? Is that really? Like, there's doctors out there who are saving people's lives every day. So we as society, we actually measure success through fame, through fortune, when really success is not that. Success is for different people, different things. So if you had me on this podcast right now and you were comparing my life to Michael Jordan, right, I would be a failure, you know. But in my you know, wee guy or wee big guy, growing up in Stirling, growing up and make it in basketball from growing up in Stirling where the sport didn't really even exist, that's success in my eyes. Does that make sense? 100%. So it's all comparative as well. So when people are looking at their lives, and that's where social media right now, even like I feel like a hypocrite at times when people are looking at me. Please don't compare yourself to me. Please don't do that. Think about your own situation. Think about where you've come from, what you're doing right now, things that you can improve on. Don't just get blinded and blindsided by looking at social media and saying, wow, these people are amazing. Why am I not that person? Because that will completely jade your vision. So you have to be a little bit more inward focused and thinking about you as a whole, where you are, where you want to be, how do you kind of get there, and not get kind of distracted by those other things. Don't get me wrong, you can use a little bit of inspiration and a little bit this, a little bit that, but please do not be comparing yourself to these people, because it's unfair. You don't know what these people have, the opportunities that they've had, you know. Like I said, if I was wanting to be a jockey in my life, I probably wouldn't have had as much, you know, quote unquote success in that sport than I did in basketball. But basketball made sense to me. It was perfect for the environment I was in.
100%. It's you're right. Like, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves. We're all on our own journey, and you need to focus on that because it's what you can control at the end of the day. And, you know, I could talk to you all day, right? I could talk to you all day.
But you know, I've got a car to get to.
Exactly. How long have we went for? See, that's just me, Stevie. I mean, I will come on your podcast, so we're going to do that, right? And I would love to have you back on because I could talk to you all day. And this has been such a really enjoyable conversation, and like it's very reassuring because I'm 26 and I feel like Paul will tell you the last few years for me have been a bit chaotic, right? Right, but I feel like I'm finally starting to get grips with if something happens to me, I'm still focusing on what I can control and staying on the path. And listening to you say all these things, you know, as much as I want everyone listening to it to feel it as well, I'm feeling it, and I'm going, it's reassuring to me that I'm doing the right things, and everything you've just said there are things that I've only just started to implement in my life. So it's very reassuring to hear you speak about these things, and I think it will help a lot of people.
No, well, honestly, thanks for having me on. And like I said, that last piece of advice is really start working on your own belief. I can't reiterate that enough. It's so important. And again, I will openly admit that I struggle at times. I still, I'll talk about that imposter syndrome. I still have that. There's times like I cannot do that, or if I'm going to a specific school, like tonight, I'm talking at a private school, and I'm thinking, that's not me, and just little things like that. I need reassurance myself. So yeah, just keep going. That's all I can say. That's my motto in life. Just keep going.
I love it, Kieron. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.